It really, really matters. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit as we start the conversation about why. I think, just by the fact that you're here, you probably got some sense that politics still matters, that politics can still change things. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if you're a bit sceptical seeing a politician standing in a suit in front of you talking about why you should get involved in politics and that things really can and will change. Years of broken promises. I can't remember a time when it was as difficult for young people as it is today. When I left university in 1997, not 1997, I started university in 1997. When I left in 2001, we were into the second term of the Labour government, when the economy was growing, when there were opportunities to get jobs, there were opportunities to earn decent wages. It felt like progress was inevitable. And over this last dark, divisive decade, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that it isn't. And watching what's happened to your generation, particularly the much overlooked impact of the pandemic on young people, from the small kids who didn't get the chance to do toddler groups and are now dealing with huge social anxieties as they start school, to the teenagers who lost their chance to test out the boundaries, to have the freedoms, to gain their confidence and the skills, working at night on borrowed laptops without access to data, without printers, trying to just keep going. If anything broke my heart more, it was during the pandemic, Zooming with some of the young people in my constituency, and one of the girls said, of course I wanted to be a doctor, but that's not going to happen now. Well, I can tell you, honestly, that despite how difficult things are, things can change. That girl, when she said it to me, I thought, oh no, like hell, this is going to happen. You are going to be a doctor if that's what you choose. And I went on Any Questions a few days later, and I used her story with her permission about how hard it had been and how few opportunities there were. And within a day, my local youth zone, and we've got someone from on side here who run my local youth zone, they were inundated with offers of help for laptops and equipment for young people. She managed to get the equipment she needed. We managed to get a replacement. She's gone off to won a place at medical school, and she is going to be a doctor. But I say to your generation, it isn't just about change for individuals. This is about system change as well. And changing systems is bloody difficult. It's hard. Democracy is frustrating. Sometimes it feels like you're shouting into a void. I worked with child refugees before I came into Parliament, one of the most marginalised, discriminated against groups in this country. We went into Yarlswood Immigration Detention Centre and fought to get those kids out. We went into homes that were not fit to live in, where destitute families who've been refused asylum were trying to bring up kids and just survive, and we took it all the way to the Supreme Court and we defeated those laws. But it took decades. And then we saw all that progress unravel in 2010 when the coalition government was elected. It's hard, it's frustrating, and I understand that it is. But I'm here to tell you that things can change. And if you want any better example of that, just look at this man here on the panel. I got to know Kwadwo when I was leading for Labour on housing issues, but I knew of him for a long time before, because together with a handful of really brilliant, determined people, they were shaking up the housing debate and sending housing skyrocketing up the political agenda. It had always been a major issue out there in the country, but it just hadn't permeated the closed world of politics until they came along. And suddenly, one man with a mobile phone started really changing the debate.
Thank you.
And it's led to real changes already. It's led to legislation that has gone through Parliament that has tilted the balance of power back to social housing tenants, after Grenfell shamefully exposed how people could be rendered invisible in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, just a few miles away from the centre of political power, because they were poor, because they were immigrants, because they came from an ethnic minority background, and forced to endure appalling and, in the end, ultimately dangerous conditions. It's led to change already, but it's got to lead to more, and that's why I'm fighting tooth and nail for a Labour government, because governments can change things. It takes political courage and it takes political will, but they can. And if you want any better example of that, it's a guy, my predecessor in Wigan, a guy called Ian McCartney, whose proudest political achievement still to this day was to become the minister who took through the minimum wage through Parliament. Now, for some of you guys, some of your generation, it's probably unthinkable to think that there was a time before we had some kind of basic floor on what people could earn. But when I was growing up, it was unthinkable that it could ever be different. We knew that if you're a woman, if you're from a poorer background and you had fewer qualifications, if you were disabled, you would earn less than other people. You would earn as little as 50p an hour, while people next to you were being paid far, far more. And you should be grateful just to have a job and just to be able to do it. That was the debate. That was the state of the debate. And when the trade union movement started that campaign, people said they'd gone completely bonkers. It would be unprecedented for the state to intervene to that level. Every major economist, business leaders, the Tories, said that the economy would collapse and the sky would fall in if a Labour government was daft enough to do it. And then guess what? A Labour government did it. And it changed the game so that even the Tories couldn't get rid of it. In fact, it's put it beyond politics and beyond the political debate. And that is one of our proudest achievements. That's why I say to you that things can change. Now, we'll help you to make your voices heard. I'm an MP, I've been an MP for 13 years now. And I can tell you that when you get elected, you're hit with a clamour of noise from constituents, from lobbyists, from people, emails, letters, phone calls pouring into the office. People wanting you to take up their issue, champion their cause. And it can be hard to hear what's really happening because of that. Because those people who make the most noise, they're not always right. They're not always the most in need. They're often better funded, better organised, better educated. And it can be hard for young people to make your voices heard. Now, our commitment to you is that we will help you. There was a reason why the education maintenance allowance could be abolished in just one meeting of ministers in 2010. One of the game-changing things that got smart kids from towns like Wigan the lift to go on to university for the first time in their family history because they had the income suddenly to be able to get through college. And there was a reason why that was abolished in just one meeting, and the pensions triple lock survived for a decade. And that is quite simply because of political power. It's to do with the fact that the 16 and 17-year-olds who were affected couldn't vote. Well, the next Labour government is going to change that, and that is a promise to you all. But the challenge back to you is this, that if you don't speak up, we can't hear you. And for those of you who have the right to vote, if you don't use that vote, we can't hear you. We need you to get loud. We need you to get noisy. If you're angry, well, you should be. So let's hear it. You know, hold our feet to the fire. Tell us when we're getting it wrong. We'd expect nothing less in government, and we respect you for it. But tell these guys in Downing Street too that things need to change, and that they will change, and that they must change. Because in the end, that is the only way. That is the only way that we're going to solve the climate crisis. It's the only way we're going to deal with the housing crisis that is holding back an entire generation. It's the only way we're going to deal with the fact that there are kids today who are sleeping on floors because their parents can't afford beds growing up, too hungry to learn in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Things can change. Not only can they change, they must change. And we're counting on you as a generation to get mad, to get loud, to get noisy, and to force that change to happen. Thank you so much.